Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and today we are back with more the Prose Edda. As we wind down towards the end of the book, today I believe we continue on the story that we were doing. Okay. 10. Well, we still got a little bit to go, but alright. Let's go ahead and jump into this. Varango, King Ali's greed, and Queen Gudrun's vengeance. Brynhild's brother, King Arli, son of Budli, then married Gudrun, Sigurd's former wife, and together they had children. King Arli invited Gunnar and Hogni to come for a visit, and they accepted the invitation. Before setting out from home, they hid the gold, Fafnir's inheritance, in the Rhine. The gold has never been found. King Arli was waiting for them, or King Atli was waiting for them with his men, and he fought with Gunnar and Hogni, seizing them in the end. King Atli had Hogni's heart cut out while he was alive, and that was his death. Atli had Gunnar thrown into the snake pit, but Gunnar secretly was given a harp. Because his hands were bound, he played it with his toes. All the snakes fell asleep except for the adder. This one glided towards him and struck just below his breastbone, so that she buried her head into his flesh, grabbing hold of his liver until he died. Gunnar and Hogni are called Niflungs or Gjukongs, and for this reason the gold is called the treasure or the inheritance of the Niflungs. Shortly after that, Gudrun killed her two sons, and she had goblets made from their skulls using gold and silver. Then a funeral feast was held for the Niflungs, for which Gudrun had King Atli served mead in these cups mixed with the blood of the boys. She also hid their hearts, or had their hearts roasted and given to the king to eat. She then confronted Atli and, with foul words, told him what she had done. There was no lack of strong mead at the feast, and most people fell asleep where they were sitting. Later in that night, Gudrun, accompanied by Hogni's son, approached the king as he slept and struck him his death blow. Then they spread fire in the hall, and the people inside burned to death. Gudrun's third marriage. After that, Gudrun went down to the shore and jumped into the sea, wanting to drown herself, but she was carried across the fjord and came to the land ruled by King Yonik. When he saw her, he took her as his own and married her. They had 3 sons, Sorli, Hamdir, and Erp. Their hair was black as a raven's, as was the hair of Gunnar and Hogni and the other Niflungs. Svanhild, the daughter of Sigurd, in his youth, was raised there and became the most beautiful of women. King Jormunrek the Powerful, learning of her beauty, sent his son Ranber to ask for her hand on his behalf. After Ranber's arrival at Yonix, Svanhild was entrusted to his keeping, as he was the one who was to take her to Jormunrek. Then Biki, the king's advisor, spoke. He suggested that they would be better if Ranver took Svanhild for himself, because the two were young, whereas Jormunrek was an old man. The idea appealed to the young people, but the next thing Biki did was to tell the king what had happened. King Jormunrek's tragedy. King Jormunrek had his son seized and led to the gallows. Ranver grabbed hold of his hawk and plucked out the feathers, asking that it be sent to his father. Then Ranver was hanged. When King Jormunrek saw the hawk, he realized that, like it, now featherless and unable to fly, his kingdom also was disabled, as he was old and had no son. Later, King Jormunrek was returning from a hunt with his retainers riding from the forest. He saw Queen Svanhild sitting outside and washing her hair. He and his men rode her down, trampling her to death under the feet of the horses. When Gudrun learned about this, she incited her sons to seek vengeance for Svanhild. As they prepared their trip, she gave them mailcoats and helmets so strong that iron would not pierce them. Her advice to her sons was that when they reached King Jormunrek, they should attack him at night while he slept. Sorli and Hamdir should cut off his arms and legs and Erp the head. As they traveled, the brothers asked Erp what assistance they could expect from him should they actually get to King Jormunrek. He answered that he would help them just as the hand helps the foot. They said that the foot was not supported at all by the hand. Their mother had taunted the sons as they set out, and that made them so angry with her that they wanted to do whatever would hurt her the most. So they killed Erp because she loved him the most. A little while later, as Sorli was walking, one of his legs slipped under him, and he supported himself with his hand. Then he said, "The hand now has helped the foot. He would have been better if Erp had lived." It was not when they reached King Jormunrek's sleeping quarters. He awoke as they struck off his hands and legs, and he called out to his men, commanding them to rise. Then Hamdir said, "The head would have been off if Erp had lived." The king's men rose and attacked the brothers, but they could not harm them with weapons. Finally, Jormunrek called to his men, telling them to stone them. They did so, and Sorli and Hamdir both fell. Now the house of Yuki and all his descendants were dead. From his youth, Sigurd was survived by a daughter named Aslog. She had been born at the home of Hymir and Hlimdales, and from her great families are descended. It is said that Sigmund, the son of Volsung, was so tough that he could drink poison and not be harmed. Also, that his son Sinfjotli, as well as Sigurd, had skin so hard that poison caused them no harm, even if it came onto their bare flesh. 8. Frodi's meal and his peace. Why is gold called Frodi's flour? There is a tale about this. Skjold was a son of Odin, and one from whom the Skjoldungs were descended. He had a court that ruled over lands that are now called Denmark, but were known at that time as Gotland. Skjold had a son named Fridleif, who ruled over lands after him. Fridleif's son was named Frodi, and he took the kingdom after his father in the period when Emperor Augustus was pacifying the whole world. This was when Christ was born. Because Frodi was the most powerful king in the northern countries, his name became connected with the peace which reigned throughout the lands speaking the Danish tongue. The Norwegians called it Frodi's peace. No man harmed another, even if it came upon the killer of his father or of his brother, whether they were free or bondsmen. There were neither thieves nor robbers, and for a long time a gold ring lay untouched on Jalanger's heath. King Frodi went on a visit to Sweden as guest of the king named Fjolnir. He brought their two slave women. They were called Fenja and Minja, and were huge and strong. At that time, they were in Denmark, two millstones so large that no one was strong enough to get them turning. The nature of these stones was that they ground out whatever the miller commanded to be ground. The mill was called Groti, and Hangjaw was the name of the one who gave the mill to King Frodi. King Frodi had the slave women taken to the mill and commanded them to grind gold, peace and prosperity for Frodi. He gave them no more time to rest or to sleep than a cuckoo takes to remain silent or a person to sing a verse. It is said that then they chanted the lay called Groti's Song, and before they had reached their singing, they ground out an army to oppose Frodi. That very same night, the sea king named Mysing arrived there and killed Frodi, taking much plunder. With that, Frodi's peace ended. Mysing took Grodi and also Finja and Minja away with him and told them to grind salt. Towards the middle of the night, they asked Mysing if he was not growing tired of salt. He told them to keep on grinding, but they continued for only a short time before the ship sank. From that time on, there has been a whirlpool in the ocean where the sea flows down into the eye of the millstone. It was then that the sea became salty. Kraki's Part 9, Kraki's seed and King Hrolf Kraki of Denmark. Why is gold called Kraki's seed? There was a king in Denmark named Hrolf Kraki. He was the most renowned of the old kings, chiefly because of his generosity, valor, and humility. A mark of his humility, and the one that is often repeated in stories, is that a little poor boy named Vlog came to King Hrolf's hall. At the time, the king was young and slender in build. Vlog went before Hrolf and stared up at him. Then the king said, "What do you want to say, boy, since you are staring at me?" Vlog said, "When I was at home, I heard it said that King Hrolf at Hledra was the greatest man in the Northlands, but now there sits before me on the throne a thin Poe, Kraki, of a man, and you call him your king." In reply, the king said, "You, boy, have given me a name. I shall be called Hrolf Kraki, and it is the custom that a gift shall accompany the name given. I can see, however, that at this naming you have no gift for me which I would find acceptable. So the one who has will give to the other." And he took a gold ring from his arm and gave it to the boy. Then Vlog said, May your giving be blessed above all kings, and I swear an oath to be the death of the man who kills you." The king laughed as he replied, "It takes little to please Vlog." King Rolf and King Adolf of Sweden. Another story that illustrates King Hrolf's valor has to do with a king named Adolf, who ruled over Uppsala and who was married to Isra, or Irza, Hrolf Kraki's mother. Adolf was at war with the king called Ali, who ruled Norway. They arranged to meet in battle on the ice of the lake named Vani, and King Adolf went to request to his stepson Hrolf Kraki to come to his assistance. He promised to pay Hrolf's whole army while it was away from home, and King Hrolf was to choose for himself 3 of Sweden's treasures. As King Hrolf was unable to undertake the trip because of his conflict with the Saxons, he sent to Adolf his 12 berserkers. Bodvir Bjarki was among them, and so also was Hjalti the courageous, Hvitserk the bold, Vot Vasetti, and the brothers Svipdag and Begund. In that battle, King Ali fell, along with a large part of his army. Then King Adolf took the helmet called Battle Pig from Ali's dead body and the horse Raven. When Hrolf Kraki's berserkers asked that each of them should be paid 3 pounds of gold for their services, Furthermore, they asked to take back to to Hrofkraki the treasures that they would choose for him: the helmet Hildegot, battle boar, and the mail shirt Finn's legacy, which weapons would not pierce, and the gold ring called Sveagris, the Swede's pig, which had been in the possession of Adol's ancient ancestors. But the king refused to give up any of these treasures, and he would not even pay them their wages. Little pleased with their lot, the berserkers left. They reported the outcome to Hrodi Kraki, who immediately set out for Uppsala. After first guiding his ships to the river Free, along all of them without safe conduct. After first guiding the ships up the river Free, Hrolf rode to Uppsala, accompanied by the 12 berserkers, all of them without safe conduct. Hrolf's mother, Irsa, welcomed him. She showed him to his lodgings, though she was not to the king's hall. Large fires were lit for them, and they were supplied with ale. Next, King Adol's men entered. They heaped logs onto the fires, making them burn so hot that the clothes were burned off King Hrolf and his men. Adol's men asked, "Is it true that Hrolfkraki and his berserkers flee neither fire nor iron?" Then Hrolfkraki and all his men jumped to their feet, and Hrolf answered, "Let's further increase the fires in Adol's house." And grabbing his shield, he threw it into the blaze. As the shield burned, he jumped over the flames and said, "He does not flee fire who leaps over it." Now, each of his men, one after the other, did the same thing, and as they did so, they took hold of those who had been feeding the fire and threw them into the blaze. Irsa now arrived and gave Hrolfkraki an animal's horn filled with gold, including the ring Sveagris. She advised them to ride back to their army, and they leapt on their horses and rode down the fiery plains. It was then that they saw King Adils riding after them. His army was with them, dressed for war and intending to kill. With his right hand, King Hrolfkraki reached into the horn, taking hold of the gold, and sowed it like seed all along the road. When the Swedes saw him doing that, they leapt from their saddles, and trying to grab as much gold as they could, King Adils commanded his men to continue riding, and he himself galloped as hard as he could. His horse, named Slungnir, was the fastest of mounts. When Hrolfkraki saw King Adils coming up fast behind him, he took the ring Sveagris and threw it in front of Adils, inviting him to take it as a gift. King Adils rode up to where the ring lay and reached for it with his spear, letting the ring slide onto the blade all the way to the socket. Hrolfkraki now looked back and Seeing idols bent over, he said, I made the most powerful of the Swedes grovel like a pig. Then they parted. From this story, goat is called the seed of Kraki, or the seed of the fiery plains. So yeah. More tales of royalty and conflicts between Scandinavian nations. And of course, Denmark was quite famous as a place of Viking story and everything. Beowulf itself, the hero Beowulf, was supposedly from Denmark. Because I believe they talk about him being one of the Danes. But yeah. So, we are coming to the end of the book. 11 pages left in the main stories and everything. And then after that, it's just like appendixes and stuff. So, yeah. We went through a patriarchal line. We saw the story of greed, or getting the better of men and women because they all wanted gold. And not just any gold, dwarven gold is where it sprung from. But yeah. I'll go ahead and end this episode here. As always, educate thyself, think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. I'll see you all in the next video. Until then, later.